My son's wife told me you're not invited, so I did this. The smell of fresh basil was still lingering on my fingertips when my world came crashing down. I was standing in my kitchen in Denver, carefully preparing my famous herb-crusted salmon for what was supposed to be a celebration dinner at my son's new house. My hands moved with the practiced ease of someone who'd been cooking with love for 30 years, when my phone buzzed against the marble countertop. A text from my daughter-in-law, Vanessa. "You're not invited to dinner tonight. I don't want you there." 2 sentences. 23 words. A digital knife straight through my heart, delivered at 4:17 p.m. on the very day I was supposed to arrive with the meal I'd spent all afternoon preparing. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling slightly. This was the house I'd helped them buy, the same house whose stunning view of the Rocky Mountains I'd only seen twice since they moved in 6 months ago. I'd covered their down payment. $28,000, to be exact. I'd paid their hospital bills when little Sophia was born. I'd funded their honeymoon to Hawaii, covered their grocery bills, even paid for their internet for the past 3 years. And now I wasn't wanted. My fingers moved with an eerie calm I didn't recognize. I texted back one word, "Okay." Then I walked to my home office and opened the burgundy leather ledger I kept in my desk drawer. Every single transaction was there, written in my careful handwriting. $200 for the crib. $4,500 for their wedding photographer. $28,000 for the house deposit. $350 for their car repairs last month. 147 entries in total, spanning 3 years of what I thought was love and support. I didn't scream. I didn't call my son Tyler to demand an explanation. I didn't throw my phone across the room like I wanted to. Instead, I did something that surprised even me. I opened my laptop and deleted the digital backup of every financial record I'd kept of their expenses. Just like that, 3 years of receipts vanished into cyberspace. Then I went completely silent. No more automatic bank transfers. No more surprise grocery deliveries. No more just checking in calls. They had treated my love like a utility bill, always expected, never appreciated. They had no idea they'd just cut their own lifeline. But here's the thing about that text message. It wasn't really the beginning of this story. The real poison had started 3 months earlier, with words I was never supposed to hear. It was a beautiful spring evening in March when I discovered what my daughter-in-law really thought of me. I'd driven across town to their new house in Lakewood to drop off a care package, homemade chicken noodle soup, some frozen casseroles, and a box of diapers for baby Sophia. Just being helpful, or so I thought. Vanessa answered the door with her iPhone pressed against her ear, deep in conversation. The Bluetooth speaker on their entryway table was connected, and her voice carried crystal clear through the house. "Yeah, she's here again," she said, her voice dripping with irritation. "I swear she just looks for excuses to show up. It's like she thinks she owns this place just because she helped with the down payment." My heart stopped. She knew I was standing right there. She knew I could hear every word, and she didn't care. Tyler keeps saying she means well, but honestly, it's suffocating. I can't even rearrange my own living room without her having an opinion about it. When she finally turned to face me, her smile was as fake as a $3 bill. "Oh, hi Mirren. That's so thoughtful of you, as always." I handed her the bag, managed a polite nod, and walked back to my Honda Accord with as much dignity as I could muster. That was the first crack in my heart, the first time I seriously considered stepping back from their lives. But I didn't. Not yet. My son Tyler had always been my gentle boy. Growing up, he'd call me every Sunday without fail, his voice a warm comfort in my quiet house. But ever since he'd married Vanessa 2 years ago, those calls had become sporadic. Our relationship was slowly being turned down like the volume on a radio, controlled by someone else's hand. The following week, I sent their usual car insurance payment, $180, as I had for the past year. No thank you text. No acknowledgement at all. The week after that, I offered to babysit Sophia so they could have a date night. "We already made plans with Vanessa's mom," Tyler told me, his voice apologetic but distant. "And now this dinner. The dinner that was supposed to celebrate the home I had made possible. I had offered to cater it myself, bought all the ingredients for my signature dishes, even offered to host it at my larger house with the big dining room Tyler used to love as a child. Instead, I found myself uninvited to my own son's life. I didn't cry after reading Vanessa's text. The tears would come later. What I felt in that moment was something much more dangerous than sadness. It was clarity. Cold, Sharp clarity that told me I had been enabling my own disrespect for far too long. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. What I felt was something far more powerful, a deep, crystalline silence that settled over me like fresh snow. It was the silence of someone who had finally seen the truth and was ready to act on it. I sat down at my computer and began making changes. First, I paused the automatic $800 monthly transfer I'd been sending to help with their mortgage. Click. Paused. Next, I cancelled the upcoming $1,200 payment for Sophia's daycare that I'd promised to cover. Click. Cancelled. Then I changed the passwords to every shared account: Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Spotify, even the Costco membership they used for their bulk shopping. I methodically went through each service, updating passwords to combinations they'd never guess. I didn't send an explanation email. I didn't leave a voicemail warning. I simply vanished from the support system they had grown far too comfortable leaning on. For 2 days, I enjoyed the most peaceful silence I'd experienced in years. I read a book cover to cover for the first time in months. I took my neighbor Mrs. Chen up on her invitation for tea. I actually watched a movie without my phone buzzing every 20 minutes with some new financial request or crisis. Then the text started. "Hey Mom, something weird happened with our mortgage payment. Did you forget to send it? Werent, Netflix isn't working. Did something happen with the account? The grocery card got declined today. Can you check if there's an issue?" I said nothing. Silence, I was learning, is the loudest reply of all. On the 4th day, Tyler called. I watched my phone ring from across the room, his smiling photo lighting up the screen, a picture from last Christmas when he still hugged me like he meant it. I let it go to voicemail. He called again, and again, and again. By the end of that anxious week, I had 68 missed calls from my son. But not once, not a single time, did either of them ask how I was doing. Not one message said, "Mom, are you okay? We're worried about you." Just panic. Just desperation about money. That's when I knew for absolute certain that they didn't miss me. They missed my wallet. But I wasn't finished yet. The digital receipts might have been deleted, but I still had the physical copies in my burgundy ledger. Every bank statement, every receipt, every cancelled check was organized in chronological order. I spent an entire evening drafting a formal letter, written on my personal letterhead, itemizing every major payment over $500 as a temporary loan subject to full repayment unless explicitly acknowledged as a gift in writing within 30 days. It wasn't about revenge. It was about respect. I was done being treated like an ATM with a heartbeat. After a full week of complete silence from me, a different kind of message finally appeared on my phone. This one was from Tyler alone, and for a moment, my heart softened. "Mom, please call me. What's going on? Vanessa says you're upset over some kind of misunderstanding about dinner." A misunderstanding. I stared at those words until they burned into my retinas. "You're not invited to dinner. I don't want you there." How much clearer could a message possibly be? Still, this was my son. The little boy who once drew me pictures of stick figure families where I was always the tallest one, colored in bright purple because it was my favorite color. The teenager who promised me during his high school graduation speech that he'd always take care of his mom when he grew up. But that boy was gone. This man, this stranger, had stood by while his wife sent that cruel text. He hadn't defended me. He hadn't stopped her. He only reached out when the money stopped flowing. I typed back one word: "Why?" His reply came instantly: "Why what?" The fact that he didn't even understand the question told me everything I needed to know. I didn't bother to explain. Some lessons can't be taught with words, they have to be lived. That night, I opened a memory box I kept in my bedroom closet. Inside were Tyler's childhood drawings, his report cards, photos from his college graduation at CU Boulder. There was one picture that stopped me cold: Tyler in his cap and gown, his arms wrapped around me, both of us grinning at the camera like we shared the greatest secret in the world. Where had that boy gone? Maybe I had lost him the day I made his adult life too easy. The next morning brought a long text from Vanessa, and I could practically hear the fake sweetness dripping from every word. "Werent, I'm sorry if what I said came off as harsh. We're just trying to set healthy boundaries now that we're homeowners. We need space to build our nuclear family without outside interference." Interference. The word hit me like a physical blow. My financial support was generosity when they needed it, and interference when they didn't want accountability. I didn't reply to her text. Instead, I printed out a 6-page detailed statement of every expense I had covered on their behalf over the past 3 years. Every grocery run, every emergency car repair, every medical bill, every utility payment. I placed it in a red manila folder, the same kind I used for important household documents when Tyler was growing up. I attached a simple handwritten note. Over the past 3 years, I have supported you both financially out of love and maternal instinct. I never demanded repayment. I only expected basic respect and inclusion in the family I helped create. That respect was taken from me. You are adults now with your own home and your own choices. This is me stepping back. Consider these records not a bill, but a lesson in how quickly love can be discarded when it's taken for granted. I will no longer fund my own disrespect. I placed that red folder in their mailbox on a sunny Thursday morning and drove away without looking back. By the time I reached my driveway, my phone was already buzzing with incoming calls. I didn't answer. For the first time in 3 years, the silence in my house felt like peace instead of loneliness. A week passed. Then 2. I started living again. I enrolled in a watercolor painting class at the community center, something I'd been putting off for months because I was always too busy solving Tyler and Vanessa's latest crisis. I took a long weekend trip to Aspen with my old college roommate Linda, something I'd been promising myself for years. I started having regular dinners with my niece Carmen, who was studying at Denver University. We'd cook together in my kitchen, laughing over silly television shows and sharing stories. "Aunt Mirren, you seem different lately," Carmen said one evening as we made homemade pasta. "You're lighter somehow. Like you've been carrying something heavy and finally put it down." I smiled as I rolled out the dough. She was right. I had been carrying something heavy, the weight of being unappreciated, unheard, and unwanted in my own son's life. Then came Tyler's birthday party, the one I learned about through the neighborhood gossip network. His old friend Jake, who lived 2 streets over, had mentioned seeing cars at Tyler's house and assumed I was there. When I told him the truth, his face changed completely. "You weren't invited to your own son's birthday dinner." Jake's voice was incredulous. "Mirren, that's..." He shook his head, unable to finish the sentence. Apparently, halfway through Tyler's backyard barbecue, another neighbor had asked loudly, "Hey Tyler, where's your mom? Is she coming later?" The question carried across the yard, and Vanessa had tensed visibly. Tyler had shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Jake, who knew the truth, had spoken up clearly enough for everyone to hear. She wasn't invited. The laughter died instantly. A ripple of uncomfortable murmurs spread through the crowd of Tyler's friends and co-workers. Several guests quietly made their excuses and left early. One family friend actually returned the gift she'd brought, saying she couldn't celebrate under those circumstances. By the end of the night, only a handful of people remained at what was supposed to be a celebration. Tyler left me a voicemail that night, his voice strained and desperate. "Mom, I don't know what's happening. People are looking at us differently. Vanessa's been crying. Can we please just talk? I feel like everything's falling apart." I deleted it without finishing. A few days later, a handwritten letter arrived in my mailbox, actual handwriting, not a text or email. The return address was Tyler's, but when I opened it, the words took my breath away. "Mom, I'm sorry. You didn't deserve any of what happened. I don't know when I stopped seeing you as a whole person and started seeing you as just help. I was so afraid of conflict with Vanessa that I let her say things I should have stopped. I let her treat you in ways I would never tolerate anyone treating a stranger, much less my mother. I want to try to rebuild this, not with money or expectations, just with me, your son, if there's still a chance for that." It started with a knock on my door one Tuesday morning. I looked through the peephole and saw Tyler standing on my porch, holding baby Sophia in his arms. No Vanessa in sight. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept properly in weeks. "Mom," he said softly when I opened the door. I didn't know where else to go. My heart wanted to pull him inside immediately, to make him coffee and fix everything with homemade pancakes like I had when he was 12. But my head, my newly awakened sense of self-preservation, kept me cautious. Little Sophia reached for me with her tiny fingers, making those sweet baby sounds that melt grandmothers' hearts. I stepped aside and let them in, but I didn't rush to take the baby. I didn't offer coffee. I waited. Tyler sat heavily on my couch, the same couch where he'd done homework throughout high school, where we'd watched countless movies together. He looked around the living room like he was seeing it for the first time, really seeing it. She left, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Packed 2 suitcases last night and went to stay with her sister in Colorado Springs. Said I needed to figure out who I was more loyal to, her or you. And what did you tell her? I asked, settling into my armchair across from him. He looked up, and I saw something I hadn't seen in years, the boy he used to be, vulnerable and honest. I told her that loyalty isn't supposed to be a choice between the people you love. But she said it was either her or you, and I had to pick. So you picked. I thought I was trying to keep peace, he said, his voice cracking slightly. But the harder I tried to make her happy, the more I lost pieces of myself. And pieces of you. He paused, looking down at Sophia, who had fallen asleep in his arms. Mom, I know I let things go too far. I know I let her disrespect you in ways that were inexcusable. But you've always been the one person who truly had my back, and I miss you so much it physically hurts. There it was. The admission I'd been waiting 3 years to hear. You let me become invisible in your life, Tyler, I said, my voice gentle but firm. I became someone you only remembered when you needed something. I know, he whispered, tears starting to flow. And I hate myself for it. The baby stirred, and instinctively I reached out. He handed her to me, and she settled against my chest like she belonged there. Maybe forgiveness didn't have to be about punishment anymore. Maybe it could be about teaching someone how to earn their way back into your heart. That evening, after Tyler left, I stood by my kitchen window and watched the sunset paint the Rocky Mountains in shades of gold and pink. This new version of myself had learned something crucial about boundaries. They don't bend just because someone finally remembers how to apologize. A few days later, a text came from Vanessa. I see Tyler's been staying with you. Good luck dealing with that. Let's see how long you enjoy having him back when he can't pay for anything. No concern for baby Sophia. No questions about Tyler's well-being. Just venom, delivered with surgical precision. I realized then that she wasn't upset because Tyler had left her. She was furious because I wasn't begging to be let back into their lives. She had lost control of the narrative, and for the first time, she was the one on the outside looking in. I didn't reply. Instead, I took a screenshot for my records. Tyler returned a few days later with a small showbox under his arm. I found this when Vanessa was packing, he said, his face grave. I think you need to see what's inside. The box contained printed copies of text messages and emails between Vanessa and her sister, dating back over a year. My hands shook as I read them. I can't stand Tyler's mother. She acts like we owe her something just because she helped with a few bills. If Werent thinks she can control our lives through money, she's got another thing coming. Once the house is fully paid off, we won't need her anymore anyway. Tyler's too much of a mama's boy to see it, but I'm working on that. The final message was dated just 2 weeks before the dinner incident. I'm going to start setting some hard boundaries with his mother. It's time Tyler chose between his wife and his mommy. My breath caught in my throat. This hadn't been a spontaneous moment of rudeness. This had been a calculated campaign, designed to erase me from Tyler's life piece by piece. Mom, Tyler said, his voice heavy with shame. I had no idea how deep this went. I closed the box carefully. The truth was painful, but it was also clarifying. Now you do. I know I have a long way to go to earn your trust back, he said, pausing at my front door. But I'm here now, and I'm staying. I'm going to prove that I can be the son you raised me to be. I believed him. But belief and trust are entirely different things. Trust had to be earned through actions, not words. The weeks that followed were quiet and tentative. Tyler came by regularly with Sophia, but he didn't ask for money or help, only for time. He talked, I listened. He started seeing a counselor to understand how he'd lost himself in his marriage. He got a second job on weekends to make ends meet without any financial support from me. He was trying, genuinely trying. One morning he arrived looking nervous. Vanessa filed for custody, he said. She wants primary custody, the house, and control of our joint accounts. She's trying to take everything. The old me would have immediately offered to pay for the best lawyer in Denver. The new me walked to my filing cabinet and pulled out a business card instead. Call Rebecca Martinez, I said, handing him the card. She's sharp, fair, and she doesn't back down from bullies. I'm not paying for your legal case, Tyler, but I'll help you find the right tools to fight your own battles. He looked at me with something I hadn't seen in years, not expectation, but gratitude. Pure, honest gratitude. Thank you, he said simply. I'll handle the rest myself. And he did. He won joint custody. The judge ruled against Vanessa's financial demands, noting that Tyler had been the primary caregiver during their separation. In the months that followed, Vanessa became increasingly erratic, canceling visitation times and making excuses. She had wanted control, not responsibility. One night, while I was tucking Sophia into bed in what had become her regular bedroom in my house, she whispered, "Grandma Mirren, sing the sleepy song." I smiled and began humming the same lullaby I used to sing to Tyler when he was her age. As her tiny eyes fluttered closed, I realized this story was never really about loss or revenge or even money. It was about legacy. It was about having the strength to draw a line in the sand and the wisdom to see who would cross it with grace. It was about showing the next generation what real love looks like, love that's firm but gentle, honest but kind, and always earned through mutual respect. It was about being not just a provider who enables weakness, but a parent who fosters strength, even when the lesson comes later than you'd hoped. And sometimes, that's exactly the lesson everyone needs most.